So your Gen Z employee turns in a really polished report. They turned it around so quickly, the structure was so clean, even the executive summary pops. And you're really impressed. But you're starting to wonder because it's so good. And you ask, how did you get that done so fast? And they say, oh, I used ChatGPT to draft it. And they say it really casually. And you're thinking, everything in your mind is just going, can I trust this? Did they actually learn anything? Can I take this up the chain? Because what if my boss asked me questions about how this all got done? So let's talk about something that we all know is happening. And look, it's not just about AI. It is about that, but not fully. It's also about two completely different definitions of doing good work. So you have managers who are wondering, what can they actually trust? And how do they adapt to the technologies that are just changing so quickly? Meanwhile, you have younger employees who are much more comfortable experimenting with these tools. They've grown up with them, essentially. And so you have that difference in comfort levels, and that's also shaping how teams work together. And how do you build trust day to day? So today's episode, this is the AI divide, and we're going to talk about how we can bridge that. So welcome to Handled by the Y Variable, the show where we bridge generations in the workplace with strategy that sticks. Each week, we tackle the real workplace challenges between managers and early career talent. No buzzwords, no generic advice, just practical frameworks that can actually work for both sides. So there are some real stakes here. There's, on the one hand, incredible opportunity with AI. It can make us faster and sharper. It can make you really efficient. But then there's a challenge, of course, and we're seeing a divide. There's a difference between generations and even differences between people on the same team about the level of trust that they have in AI, in all of those tools. And that mismatch, it really can impact how a team kind of lives essentially in the workplace. It affects how teams work together, how you can coach as a manager, and also how employees can actually build some credibility. We have to be honest, part of this tension is just nervousness. Change is hard, it's uncertain, and with AI, the rules, the whole game feels like it's changing really every few weeks. But there's also a big contradiction at the heart of all of this. We are already using AI every day. Your inbox is suggesting replies, your phone is predicting the next word, job applications are screened by algorithms before a human ever sees them. At the same time, of course, we're also afraid of AI replacing us. And that's not just managers, that's not just Gen Z, it's everyone. The difference is that Gen Z tends to trust that tool more, while managers tend to trust process more. And that's where some of the divide begins. So what can this look like in practice? I got a few scenarios that we can look at that will help us to kind of capture how this divide is playing out. So you have the first scenario that's kind of like the ghostwriter. You have an early career employee. They use AI to write the entire client proposal. It's clean, it's on brand, it's really professional. But when the client asks some follow-up questions, your early career hire is stumbling. She can't defend the strategy. She can't because she didn't create it. And that's the problem. You can't trust the process. You can't also trust the result. And as a result, you have a client relationship that's damaged, and that employee has lost the trust of the manager because, well, really, they didn't do the work and they don't really understand the why behind it. And you have another scenario. You have someone who's the purist, maybe someone who's in their mid-40s and they do everything from scratch, no AI tools. The reality is, though, it's taking them a long time to get that work done. And they may have an excellent report at the end of the day for a client, but it took them 3 weeks. And that might mean that you're missing out on a market opportunity. So that means a market opportunity is gone. That has impacted your business. Yes, it's a fantastic report, but it was really inefficient when it came to timelines. And then you have scenario 3, where you use AI really as kind of like a translator tool, maybe for initial research and analysis, but that employee is challenging the AI. They're asking questions. They're not just taking the conclusions or assumptions of the AI. They're adding analysis. They're testing conclusions with their own knowledge. And that employee, the one who used AI maybe for some of the work, she's able to actually walk the manager through every decision point without just relying on a script. And so she's combined the best of both worlds. You have fast delivery, but she also knows how to learn and articulate her thoughts around it. And that can make you a lot more confident as a manager. And the difference is that there's a level of transparency, but also that person is showing that they're building up competence. So how do we bridge this gap? There's a need for a bit of exchange of information here and a shift in the way in which we talk to each other. And that first shift is naming what's in the room. Too often, employees hide the fact that they're using AI, or managers just assume that they didn't. And that secrecy breeds some suspicion. Now imagine if someone simply said, I used ChatGPT to get the structure right, but the analysis in these sections is all mine. Look, there's no drama, no guessing games. It's really clear what it is that they did, what they contributed. The second shift is sharing the why behind the how. It's not enough to just admit that you used AI. Obviously, managers want to know that that employee can stand on their own 2 feet without it. So as a manager, one of the things that you can do is ask your employee, walk me through this. What if ChatGPT wasn't in the room? And if your employee freezes, they have no answer, that's a real red flag. But if they can say, yeah, I did this for X and Y for research, it shows that the thinking is still theirs. And finally, there's a question of alignment. Every team has to draw their own lines. Maybe AI is fair game during brainstorming. Maybe it's fine for internal analysis, but what's off limits is client-facing work. The point is, don't leave it to chance. You have to have that conversation. You need to agree together. AI can absolutely make us faster, but it can't and it shouldn't do our thinking for us. And the best teams know where that line sits. The truth is, look, AI is a part of our life. I don't know that our goal should be to eliminate it necessarily, but the goal is to make sure people can still think. So instead of banning the tool, as a manager, you can ask different questions. It's about showing your work. So you can ask, can you explain the reasoning behind this recommendation? That shows whether the insight is actually theirs. Did your employee take some time to reflect on this? You could also ask, what would you do if the opposite were true? That also gives them an opportunity to flex their thinking, so they're not just following a script. And as well, what you can also ask is, how would you adapt this for a different context? Then you can see if they can apply judgment, not just copy what comes out of that AI. So if someone can answer all of those questions, it almost doesn't matter how much they leaned on the AI. The question is whether or not their thinking is solid. Can they reason? Can they sort of jockey between different ideas and perspectives? And look, if you're Gen Z, if you're early in your career, I want you to listen to this. AI is a superpower, but what's required is you staying on top of your game. The skill isn't just knowing how to use the tool, it's knowing when to use it to go faster, when to challenge it to go deeper, and when to ignore it and maybe go down the original path. Because this is the truth. The people who can think with tools and without them, they're the ones who get promoted. They're the ones who get trusted with bigger decisions, and they're the ones who are seen as being indispensable. You need to be able to show your work and your thinking. I need to trust that you understand what you're working on. So what are some of the things we can maybe do this week? If you're a manager, stop asking, did you use AI? And ask instead, how did you approach this problem? That's one question that will reveal a lot more about your employee's process. And if you're an employee, don't just say, I used ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it might be. Document what it gave you, what you changed, and why. That way, you're not just showing this is the output, but you're showing your judgment, your ability to think. And for everyone, have a conversation as a team. Don't leave assumptions. Then you're just trying to fill the gaps when really what you should have done is communicated the rules of the game. AI doesn't have to divide your team, but you do need to bridge it intentionally. I hope you found that useful. I know it's a hot topic. I would love to hear your perspectives. Send me a DM, write in the comments, and please, as always, subscribe on YouTube, on your favorite podcast forum. Please share and leave a review. I'd love to hear from you. Look forward to seeing you next week. And remember, we can handle it together.